Title: He Lived Like You and Times Author, Copy. If you want to live in this apocalypse where zombies and monsters are everywhere, the rich rely on technology, and the poor rely on mutation. Shen Shanwu, 13 years old in appearance, 31 years old in fact, is a mutant with different appearances. Although he looks like a child, his intelligence is not very good. One day when he was walking on the road, he was suddenly forced to be adopted by a major general who did not know where he came out. He resisted, but when he looked up, he turned out to be an old acquaintance. The little boy who would only hide behind him and cry has transformed into this unsmiling, tough man in front of him. It is this expression of always dead love that is really unsightly. Shen Shanwu, can you smile? Zhang Huan, after Shanwu died, I won't laugh anymore. Shen Shanwu, who? Who are you saying is dead? After a long time, Zhang Huan found out he was crying holding Shen Shanwu's nameplate / waking up in the middle of the night calling Shen Shanwu's name / telling his adopted son how good Shen Shanwu was, all of this. They have been watched by Shen Shanwu himself. Zhang Huan, raises the gun. Since you have seen all the ugliness, then I can only either marry you or kill you. Shen Shanwu. Shen Shanwu, get married. I will recruit 800 zombies to carry you home. Can become bigger and smaller, referring to height, high quality of life requirements. Demoning, 1. Gong has an ex-boyfriend and betrayed him. Gong doesn't treat the other party as a human, but the other party will entangle, not many scenes. 2. Please don't leave a long graduation thesis, don't like to cross, the role concept is not the same as the writer's concept. I will be incompetent and furious. 4. Content tags, strong love search keywords, protagonist, Shen Shanwu, Zhang Huan supporting role, mutant others, end times, wasteland, ability 1 sentence introduction. Although it looks like a child's wisdom, it is not very good intention. When facing different cultures and different races, we should have a heart of seeking common ground while reserving differences, tolerating differences, acknowledging and respecting differences, and establishing a united front of harmony and difference. Most of them wore dark protective cloaks that covered their heads from head to toe, radiation-proof hoodies were tightly tied to the top, and they all wore protective helmets on top of their heads without exception. Those who are in better conditions inside also wear masks, which are completely protected. Some people have cracked helmets, and they take scotch tape or something and wrap it in layers and then use it. Except for the sound of the duty personnel calling the number from time to time in the security check room, there was silence from beginning to end. All survivor bases have a default rule: it is easy to get out of the city and difficult to enter the city. The complexity of the process also brings inefficiency. When the morning sun jumps out of the hill, the queue entering the city is still so long, it seems that there is no change at all. During the whole process of entering the city, the people who are checked will be under the vigilant and suspicious eyes of several mercenaries, especially those new entrants who do not have a Zhongmeng ID card. The superplanet that caused the Earth to become a wasteland overnight is the same as they attracted. 11 years ago, at a distance of 40 light-years from the Earth, a superplanet that was operating normally suddenly exploded. The explosion brought a large number of highly dangerous high-energy rays and particles, resulting in more than 70% of the living things on Earth have mutated. Mutated humans, also known as zombies, mutated animals, and mutated plants followed. They are dead but not stiff, and become monsters that only know how to attack and eat. They have no sense of mind or pain. Unless they break their heads or destroy their rhizomes, they will live forever. And it is very contagious. Once bitten by a mutant creature or scratches the skin and comes into contact with blood, normal people or animals will be infected within 24 hours and become zombies. Misfortunes do not come alone. The superplanet explosion also severely damaged the ozone layer of the Earth, resulting in sudden changes in the global weather, great temperature difference between day and night, serious damage to the ecological environment, and deadly radiation everywhere on the Earth. Human beings survived lost nearly 90% of the viable soil. Fortunately, after several years of integration and efforts, the domestic survivors set up 5 large bases and a number of small shelters in exile. Find a place to breathe. Central Alliance is one of the 5 major bases in the country. Although the name is very splendid, it seems to be the center of the world, but in fact its strength is only at the bottom, and the residents of the city are rich and poor. The gap is huge, and the high-level people have to look up to the breath of life at the base next door. When the sun fully rises, the surface temperature suddenly rises, and the hot and high temperature scorches everyone exposed to the sun, but even if they are sweaty and dizzy, the people outside the wall, they didn't dare to take off the protective cloak on their bodies, because according to the current radiation index, once their skin and respiratory system were exposed to the air for a long time, the only thing waiting for them was the path of death, and the death was extremely miserable. Everyone can only silently pray that the security check will be faster, so that they can go to the cities protected by some huge radiation filters as soon as possible. Suddenly, a scream broke the silence. The shrill cry was like a pebble falling into the lake, creating a circle of ripples, rioting and whispering in the crowd, and everyone craned their necks to the source of the sound. He stopped and stared in horror. The dozens of mercenaries standing on both sides of the city wall were trained to grasp their guns in an instant. They stood together alertly and asked their colleagues in the high monitoring room what happened through their headsets. A group of medium-sized zombies is attacking at 3 o'clock in the north, please prepare for the battle. Repeat again, 3 o'clock in the north. Go. Someone in the mercenary scolded Sheng Niang. Soon, 3 people chased by zombies rushed into everyone's sight in horror. They screamed and ran towards the city wall, rolling and crawling all the way, embarrassed. Anyone's sanity. The scary appearance that makes the scalp tingle, the stench that makes you involuntarily nauseated, and it seems that few people can keep calm. The smelly and rotten black and purple minced meat fell to the ground with the undulating footsteps of the zombies, and was stepped on the soles of the shoes by the zombies behind, making a puff 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 sound, because it was too clear, so it is easy to imagine the sticky touch. The long nails and sharp teeth are the formidable weapons of the zombies, and the red eyes and black sclera are their unique symbols. In an instant, screams and panic exploded in the crowd, and the crowd that had been in an orderly line instantly became disorganized. They rushed towards the city gate in chaos, and the screams of men and women came one after another. They were bewildered and willing to beg for the mercy and protection of the mercenaries, for fear that they would be abandoned as abandoned children and become rations for zombies. Sound the level 3 alarm. A leading figure in the mercenary army calmly issued orders. The 4th team protects the security personnel and returns to the city, and the 2nd team covers other people who have not entered the city and hides behind the bunker. The team quickly arrived and obeyed my order, and the rest were ready to meet the enemy. The composure of the leader obviously gave the team a great sense of security. Each team leader took the lead, and soon opened a powerful front against the zombie group. At this time, an old woman stopped the mercenary leader who was giving orders. Li team, Li team. Captain Li followed the voice and saw an old woman with a hunched waist. Her protective clothing is obviously the most worn out. The mask is made from a motorcycle helmet. It has no practical use other than psychological comfort. The protective gloves are also full of holes, and the exposed fingers are covered with red dots. Blisters with white and red pus inside, typical of radiation dermatosis. Behind her, there were nearly 10 children over a meter tall, and under the cracked helmets were a pair of dirty and thin cheeks. They stood together timidly, the big one pulling the small one, wearing old protective suits that were obviously picked up and not wanted by adults, and the protective suits that can still be abandoned under these conditions are basically too rotten to rot. But they can only use ordinary cloth to mend the gap and continue to use it with difficulty. Team Li. I'm the grandmother of the orphanage. Seeing the team leader looking at herself, the mother-in-law hurriedly brought the children forward. Today, Thursday, I took the children out to the bottom of the mountain for harvesting mushrooms and wild vegetables to eat. We often meet with Team Li. Team Lee, I beg you. Could you let us in? This is illegal. Team Lee wanted to say this, but he took a deep look at the pus-filled blisters on Granny Sun's 5 fingers and the group of children behind her who had been orphaned since they were born. Zhongmeng is divided into inner and outer urban areas. The living conditions in the suburban urban areas are far lower than those in the inner urban areas. Food and clothing are very problematic, not to mention contraceptive measures. As a result, countless orphans born with deformities and disabilities were born. Eating mushrooms with 10 times the radiation levels at the bottom of the mountain is like drinking poison to quench their thirst, but they have no choice. I am afraid that none of these children will live to adulthood. He turned his head and ordered the adjutant beside him, take them in. Yes. Grandma Sun was overjoyed, and hurriedly hugged the children to let them go first. Thank you, Team Lee, thank you, Team Lee. These miserable children also shouted sensible, thank you, Team Lee. Thank you uncle. Thank you, Captain Lee. The boy who walked in the last place nodded respectfully to Team Lee, and then raised his head, revealing a pair of black and white eyes. His cheeks were covered by a mask, and there was only such a pair of eyes. Even if he was blocked by a broken protective helmet, he still couldn't hide his expression. Team Lee couldn't help but look at him twice, watching him catch up with the other children, and then followed the adjutant into the security room. As a mercenary leader's sixth sense, he was vaguely aware it's not right, but this feeling is fleeting, and I can't figure it out after thinking about it. The battle was urgent, and he couldn't help worrying about a little boy. Team Lee concentrated and returned to the battlefield. In the security room. It's Granny Sunday. The radiation inspector who stayed behind was a girl in her 20s. She obviously knew the old woman in the welfare home before her, and pointed the radiation detector to Granny Sunday. Sweeping over his body, he said mechanically, the radiation level is not exceeding the standard, come and scan the ID card, and then go to the back room with the children to disinfect. The adjutant frowned slightly and pointed at the group of children with his chin. Don't they need to scan their ID cards? Where do they have ID cards? No parents, they are all black households. The girl was not surprised by this, but the main reason why these children did not have ID cards was not that they were orphans, but because their parents have been exposed to radiation more or less. These children are genetically defective, and they will not die as soon as they get ID cards, so it is better not to waste these manpower and material resources. The adjutant's brows furrowed even tighter, but he didn't say much for the sake of being just a group of children with only skeletons left. Grandma Sun stood by the door of the disinfection room and counted the number of children one by one, for fear of accidentally missing which one was outside. 9, 10, 11. She was shocked. There were not only a lot of people, but there was one more. The mother-in-law wanted to go and count again, but when she heard the duty outside urging her to hurry up, Grandma Sun responded quickly and could only comfort herself that she must have been blinded and counted incorrectly. Everyone was escorted into the outer city safely all the way, listening to the noise of the operation of the huge filter 2 meters in diameter and 10 meters in height. The adjutant immediately bid farewell to everyone and returned to the front line, while Grandma Sun quickly all the children were asked to line up and count them in order. Familiar and immature voices shouted over them, and they stopped at 10, which happened to be the number of people who were brought out in the early morning. Grandma Sun was completely relieved, and the secret way was really wrong. She certainly wouldn't know that just when the children in the orphanage were going home with the mushrooms they had picked hard, Shen Shenwu in an old protective cloak was in an alleyway in the deserted suburban city. Proceed fast. His eyes gradually turned into red eyeballs on a black background, and a strange blood light radiated from the shadows, and in a blink of an eye it changed back to the familiar and safe black and white of human beings. The author has something to say. It is customary to ask for a favorite, ask for a message, ask for a support. Please, this is really important to me, voice, it's a sweet article, don't worry, Gong has already appeared, and he will appear in chapter 3. Although it is impossible to save the full text, but this time I have listed a detailed outline in the full text, so the plot is absolutely stable, don't worry. In fact, apart from Shen Shanwu, there really are no zombies that can show black and white eyes. Run out of food. Shen Shanwu stopped slowly, listened to the sound for a while, and confirmed that he was the only one around. Then he silently tore off the tattered robe on his body, and then put the extremely stupid old helmet on, throw it away, revealing the neat new sweater and trousers underneath, as well as the snow-white sneakers and the bulging black backpack behind. From a poor orphan to a pampered young master. After doing all this, Shen Shanwu took out a small glass bottle from the side pocket of the backpack. There were 3 black nails in the bottle, fan-shaped, about 1 centimeter wide, and the tip was very sharp. He took out a piece, tapped it over his fingernail, and threw it on the ground. If there is a second person here, then he will not help but scream, because at the same time as the nail falls, flesh and bones suddenly grow out of it, first a pale finger, immediately afterwards, the blood vessels and tendons continued to extend, clinging to the snow-white bones that had grown first, and scarlet muscles and yellow fat were formed, and then evenly stretched and encased in the bloodless skin. Palms, arms, body, internal organs, legs and feet. In turn, an adult man slowly opened his eyes in this dark and hidden alley. Shen Shanwu looked at the man's clothes and was so angry. Where are your goggles, mask, and protective clothing? The man lowered his head along with the voice. A pair of black and red eyes showed his inhuman identity, then opened his mouth. The 2 rows of teeth in the mouth were sharp and sharp. I don't need those. You need to disguise your identity to sneak into the crowd, and you are the one who is waiting for the opportunity to give the CEO's son a birthday present. After speaking, the man smiled and said, top student, you looked so cute when you were 11 or 12 years old. Fuck you. Fendiayu's wo boy opened his mouth with a swear word. If it weren't for me being so bored recently, who would travel all the way to help him give him a baby? A birthday present from a fart boy. I've been very bored lately. The man shrugged and suddenly thought of something. Let's go to the southern worry-free city to play before the gifts are delivered. I heard that there is a new home in it. Large-scale dance halls, to put it bluntly, are official brothels. Tisk, the end of the world is doing these arrogant and lewd things. I like it. Let's see. Shen Shanwu straightened his hair and combed the messy strands of the protective helmet, but suddenly thought that he would have to wear a hat to pretend to block radiation later. We mutated if they have no sperm, they will go in vain if they go. Knock your nails and call you when it's done. Okay, don't be reluctant to use your nails. I have been doing nothing recently and cut a lot of them and saved them, just waste them. Got it, be careful yourself. After that, Shen Shanwu waved his hand and left the alley without looking back. Variants are the most special and rarest race in the world. There are no more than 100 people in the world, and there are a total of 9 people in China. They were born from zombies, but one day they suddenly became conscious and became half human, half zombie monsters. The reason for the mutation is still unknown. The mutants are infinitely powerful, extremely fast, do not need to eat or sleep, and are not affected by radiation. They are the freest and most powerful beings in this apocalypse. Then only cannot reproduce. They are like a small branch in the evolution of human beings, a small branch of mutation, born for the end of the world, and immediately stopped by God because the genes are too abnormal. Shen Shanwu is one of them. In the first year of the post-apocalypse, he died in the zombie tide. In the third year of the post-apocalyptic period, he awakened miraculously and became a mutant. Of course, the above is all human cognition of mutants, and it is also the information that mutants think can be known to ordinary people. In addition, they also have some incredible abilities, and they are hidden very good, just like the man in the alley can change shape and position through the nails he has cut, just like Shen Shanwu can change his body shape at will. He is 31 years old this year, but he can pretend to be 13 years old and easily infiltrate the group of students around the inner city wall who are going to skip class and go out to play. You sneak out too. Shen Shanwu naturally approached the children, his eyes swept across their faces wearing masks, and he put his arms around them with pretense a person's neck. The person being hugged said, "Who are you?" Expression, but here, in the apocalypse, the neater the clothes, the stronger the background. After all, only people who have no worries about eating and drinking have the time to clean up themselves, and sneakers like Shen Shanwu don't even have a crease. The children of, at first glance, the family is either rich or expensive. Yet. Although the child is young, he knows how to be aggressive, so he quickly responded to the big guy. Today, a very powerful team from the coastal base came to the school auditorium. We gave the opening speech, and we took the opportunity to sneak out to play. You too? Yeah, but I found something I forgot to take. Shen Shanwu sighed in disappointment, then took a few steps back and waved to the group of students, "Stop talking. I'm going back to school right now. Then bye." The child bid farewell to this familiar classmate with a confused look, and then vaguely communicated with his friends who this guy was. Behind their backs, Shen Shanwu looked at the student ID card he just touched in his palm, pouted the corners of his lips, and sighed that the little kid is really easy to deceive. Compared to the windy and rainy suburban city entrances and exits, the inner city entrances and exits are the fat poor that the children of rich families are competing for each other. The identity information is not checked when entering and leaving the inner city, because the leaders of the China League, in order to maintain their political status, trumpeted the good idea that he never engages in secession and isolation, in order to prove that the inner and outer urban areas are all one family, a warm welcome to all out-of-towners into the inner city. But the inner city duty personnel will carefully select the clothes of those who enter the city, just like beggars are not allowed to enter and leave high-end places. The ragged suburban city people will be stopped and the inner city duty personnel will be stopped, strictly cross-examined in an attitude that was almost intentional for trouble, and finally expelled with nitpicking questions. Ideal is one thing, reality is another. And a big family like Shen Shanwu was respectfully let in. A huge filter was built around the inner city wall, and the filter element was replaced every other week to filter radiation for the inner city day and night. There is only one school in Zhongmeng. Shen Shanwu doesn't have to worry about going wrong. He swiped his student ID card in front of the gate. The mutants of the Black Household were written from head to toe, and in this way, they sneaked into the place where the Central Alliance represents the future and hope. If Shen Shanwu wanted to, he could blood-wash the auditorium where all the teachers and students of the school gathered in half an hour, then tap his fingernails and teleport to 1,000 miles unscathed by his companions outside the area of severe radiation. This is how mutants are, so powerful they are unreasonable. It's a pity that the purpose of his trip is to give a birthday present to a child who just turned 15. The mutants are unable to bear children. This child is the crystallization of Shen Shanwu's other companion president and his wife before he became a zombie. The president lives up to his name. Before the apocalypse, he was the boss of a listed company. His assets were over 100 million. He was a celebrity back then. Unfortunately, after the apocalypse, everything outside his body became useless digital codes. Shen Shanwu's title is a top student. In fact, he was just a college student at the beginning, and the apocalypse arrived before graduation, but because of the top universities in the country, he was nicknamed by other mutants top students. The man who played with his nails was called a wolf dog because he had 4 German blackbacks in his family before the end of the world, and it was said that any of them ate more than him. The mutants seem to like to call themselves the characteristics of when they were still human. I don't know if it is a habit, or they want to pay homage to something that will never come back. The entire school is protected by insulating glass and radiation-proof walls. Small filters are placed every 20 meters. The measuring instruments standing on the open ground are always green. The teachers and students who came and went along the way were all dressed in simple clothes and did not wear masks. Shen Shanwu also took off the hood of his sweater and took off the mask, revealing a picture similar to his adult image. Face. He avoided the crowded auditorium and dodged sideways into the administrative office building next door. His ability only allows him to change into his appearance at any time from childhood to adulthood, and even advance to 50 or 60 years old, but no matter how it changes, it is still his own face. The relationship between mutants and humans is very tense, and the friendship between the CEO and his wife has gradually become indifferent. His wife also found a new emotional object in Zhong Meng. There is only a son, who is a constant bond between the two. Although when he asked Shen Shanwu to give gifts to his son, the president could not remember for a while that his son was a student in several grades and classes at school. Shen Shanwu and him spread out the correspondence between the husband and wife over the years, stared at the words of greeting for a long time, and finally did not find a reliable answer. In desperation, Shen Shanwu only you can say that you will be adaptable. And this so-called adaptability, the trick is that the opening ceremony is being held in the auditorium today, and the administrative office building next door is sparse. The change is that Shen Shanwu originally planned to take photos one by one classroom, find someone, swagger into the faculty office now and find the student roster. Because of his calmness, the criminal Shen Shanwu was not suspected by anyone until he found the dean's office at the corner of the third floor. Shen Shanwu relied on his art to be bold and daring. Looking left and right without anyone, he slipped in a flash. Row after row of folders are neatly placed in the cabinet by the wall of the office, and the contents are carefully marked on the ridge, which greatly facilitates foreign intruders like Shen Shanwu. He quickly found what he wanted, and then locked the person according to the enrollment time and initials. Fortunately, the name of the president's son is very complicated, and there is no situation of the same name and surname. There was a little noise outside the door. Shen Shanwu listened carefully. It was the footsteps of a group of people going up the stairs nearly 20 meters away, leaving more than enough time for him to leave. He put the document back in place, erased all traces, walked out of the room lightly, and then calmly closed the door. There is a toilet behind the director's office. Even if he is questioned or photographed by the surveillance camera in the corridor, he has a reason to appear here. Shen Shanwu returned to the aisle, raised his head and saw the group of people he heard coming towards him, 3 men and 1 woman, one of them was middle-aged and a little bald. A mask, plaid shirt and slacks, very much like a pre-apocalyptic math or physics teacher. The other 3 are all tall and long-legged handsome men and beautiful women, and the military green combat uniform is heroic. Superior new metal protective mask. Shen Shanwu's heart jumped, and he had a bad premonition. Ordinary people's protective equipment outside is helmets and masks, which is not a hindrance to ordinary actions, but it is really cumbersome to fight, so the mercenaries and teams that need to fight will be equipped with masks, which have both light and protective functions. As for the super new metal protective masks worn by these 3 people, the rounding is really burning gold, which is expensive in itself. The expensive filter elements inside the masks still need to be replaced once a day. Can't afford to consume it, even if there is, it is used to pretend, and it will not be used as a daily necessities. But it's worth the money. It is said that this mask is very breathable, protective, lightweight, and reluctant to take it off. Almost instantly, Shen Shanwu realized that these 3 people must be members of a very powerful team from the coastal base as the few kids who skipped school just now. Judging from the bald teacher's introduction to the school's teachers, and the respectful and almost flattering tone, he did not guess wrong. Shen Shanwu walked forward generously and didn't mind that the 4 people on the opposite side noticed him. When they were 3 meters away from each other, Shen Shanwu smiled sweetly, as if he was the most well-behaved like a primary school student. He said loudly and clearly, "Hello, teachers. What a beautiful and polite student." The bald teacher smiled and lost his eyes. "Hey, classmate, how are you?" Shen Shanwu bowed and got up and planned to leave, but he didn't want to straighten up, and he was blocked by a slender and strong thigh in front of him. A platinum mask. The man in the cape. "Hey!" Shen Shanwu pretended to be startled and took a half step back. He hurriedly asked the bald teacher for help. Teacher, what flaw? The man in the way slowly squatted down, and he was very angry that he was almost as tall as Shen Shanwu after he squatted down. What's your name? The man asked. Shen Shanwu did not answer, but continued to ask the teacher for help with puppy-like eyes. Although the latter felt strange in his heart, he kept smiling and encouraged the students to answer the question. Hello, classmate, this is the captain of the Shanghai team of the coastal base, please tell the captain what your name is. Good hammer. I hadn't prepared my own pseudonym before. Shen Shanwu remained silent, trying to act like a child who was frightened by a strange man, and his mind was running fast. Whether it is too simple or too complicated, a name will attract attention, also it's easy to react, but I can't reveal the filling. Mountain Wu Tong in the mountains, Wu Tong inhabits the phoenix, and the dragon and the phoenix are auspicious? Don't be afraid. The voice of the Shanghai team leader turned a little softer. Just listening to the low and steady voice in his ear, Shen Shanwu could imagine that there must be a gentle expression behind the mask. The man reached out and touched Shen Shanwu's hair. The black gloves were light to the touch, and vaguely revealed the temperature of the human body, and he knew the price was not cheap when he touched it, and he asked again, "What's your name?" "What name?" At this time, Shen Shanwu had already thought about the stage name for his debut. He pretended to be well appeased, blinked and said, "My name is Wu Long, Wu is Wu, Long from Eastern Wu. It is a dragon of dragons, snakes, horses, and sheep." Another man in military uniform standing not far away suddenly laughed. His voice sounded young, but only 17 or 18 years old. The little guy still knows about Suqiao. Shen Shanwu didn't answer, he just wanted to get rid of this problem quickly, and then went to the CEO's son's dormitory to send the gift, but unfortunately it backfired. The man in the cape still refused to know his name. Letting go of him, he continued to ask, "How old are you? What grades and classes are you in? Where do you live? What are your parents' names? How do you check your account?" Sick man. Shen Shanwu was shocked, and the bald teacher was as surprised as he was, and even the other two members of the Shanghai team. The man who had made fun of Dong Gu wondered, "Captain? This boy any questions?" The man in the cape ignored him, just looked at Shen Shanwu quietly, waiting for his answer. "Should you just lie down on the ground crying and escape this disaster?" Shen Shanwu's first reaction was this plan, but unfortunately his 30-year-old soul didn't allow him to do it, so he ruthlessly made up his head and said, 11-year-old, a student in 6th grade, class 9, whose home lives in the east, father's name is Wu, are 6th grade. The bald teacher suddenly interrupted in surprise, "There is no class 9. Shen Shanwu scolded the miscalculation. He just thought that the first few classes were all top students, and the teacher might remember the face and name, but he didn't expect that it was too late, and there was no class 9 in the school. He quickly recalled how many classes the president's son was in, and added, "Ah, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, I'm in 6th grade, 5th class." The half-squatted team captain still didn't respond, but the bald teacher was even more frightened. I am the escape class teacher in 6th grade class 5, there is no Wolong in our class at all." Shen Shanwu. Shen Shanwu turned around on his toes and jumped out of the half-open window. He was really convinced. It was clear that everything went smoothly before. Why did he suddenly kill a team captain halfway, staring at him and asking questions? There are many places suitable for climbing on the outer wall of the administrative building. Shen Shanwu just looked out of the window and saw someone reaching out his arm to grab him. He quickly and dexterously avoided it to the side, and then jumped downstairs without looking back. Children's bodies are really inconvenient, but Shen Shanwu can't turn back into an adult in front of everyone. He admits that he didn't reveal his identity, but he just can't figure out what the captain found. A high and sharp whistle broke through the sky from the top of Shen Shanwu's head, and in an instant, the eyes of the entire campus shifted to him. He raised his head in surprise, and saw the two team members, a man and a woman, jumped over the window and jumped off the building faster than him. The team leader stood sullenly, the icy platinum mask facing him. Shen Shenwu doesn't know how fast a normal 9-year-old boy can run, and ran away in despair. After landing, I didn't wait for 2 steps to run, and suddenly I didn't know where to see 2 men in military green protective suits. They simply pulled out their hand/gun neatly, aimed at Shen Shenwu and shouted loudly, "Stop, don't move. Raise your hands above your head, or I'll shoot." Shen Shenwu. At least on the outside I'm just a weak boy. Is it so vicious? Catch him. Hey? It seems that this order is very likely to not hurt him. If you really find out that he is a mutant, then you must know that the mutant will not be injured by bullets. Shen Shenwu turned his head slightly and saw a man and a woman slowly approaching behind him, and the 2 men in front were also approaching. He was decisively short and fled from the right at a very tricky angle. Go out. Fuck. This kid is a loach. The young man shouted, hurriedly chasing after him. There is a large auditorium in front of this direction. Shen Shenwu was overjoyed when he realized this. The auditorium was full of students. He could easily get out of the crowd. But just when he felt hopeful to escape, the door of the auditorium suddenly opened from the inside, and 2 people who also wore the Shanghai clan armbands came out, and one of them had a collar pinned to my, extremely it may have just been called off by the whistle from the podium. Just deal with one of him, as for all out? Deputy team. It's that kid. The young man pointed at Shen Shenwu and shouted. Before he finished speaking, the door of the auditorium was closed again, and the 2 burly men in front of him were already violent. The deputy team's technique of pinning Mai is the most ruthless. If he grabs Shen Shenwu by the back of the neck, he will push the person to the ground. The young man hurriedly shouted, the captain ordered not to hurt him. The deputy team, please be gentle. Shen Shenwu gave up the struggle speechlessly, but he wanted to see what medicine was sold in the pot of this team. Afraid of him escaping, the deputy team clasped Shen Shenwu's wrists tightly with one hand. As soon as he was surrounded, the captain of the Shanghai battle strode over in the next second, with long legs. There is an advantage, the bald teacher behind him can't keep up with the trot. Why are you running? The captain asked after standing still, and the cape that fluttered along with the pace also returned to its original position lightly. Shen Shenwu didn't bother to pretend to be good anymore. He said without anger, "You are scary, why don't you run?" "I'm scary." The captain froze for a moment, he thought for a moment, raised his hand and pressed lightly on the cheekbones on both sides of the mask, and the locks on the back of the mask's head were suddenly opened, and he lowered his head and removed the mask from his face with one hand. With a well-crafted face contour, it is a very affectionate look. The gloomy expression that hangs on his face all the time, as if he has just lost his parents and died his beloved, can really stop a child from crying at night. The author has something to say, Captain. To a certain extent your description is correct. I do die dear love Shenwu, don't want to know at the moment. The former 2 had a period of intersection, but they have no contact in the past 3 or 4 years. Thinking that the little boy who only followed his and cried, has now grown into a team captain who is on his own. From cowardly and timid to firm and deep, I don't know what he has experienced in the past few years. Shanghai team, a nationally famous team, it can be said that no one knows about it talking about money, but Shen Shenwu really didn't expect that the captain would be him, Zhang Huan. Shen Shenwu's raised eyebrows expression on the face of a 9-year-old child is a bit awkward. The young man couldn't help shouting, "What's your expression on this little brat? Is simply a waste of time." Zhang Huan didn't take a child's molestation to heart, he asked blankly, "Is it still scary now? What are you going to do?" Shen Shenwu frowned and asked, while the bald teacher at the back discussed with several teachers who came to hear the news, and shouted to Zhang Huan with certainty, "Captain Zhang, we have confirmed that there is no such person in the school at all. Zhang Huan seemed to have never heard of it, and asked Shen Shanwu word for word, "What's your name? Do you have a brother?" It really came right away. He knew that his current appearance was 7080% similar to that of an adult. When Zhang Huan asked if he had a brother, he must have regarded him as his own. "How did you get into our school? What do you want to do by sneaking in?" The bald teacher was in a hurry. He just blew their security level in front of the Shanghai team and the flies couldn't get in. As a result, an orphan in a suburban city walks through an office building with grandeur. "I didn't go to school. I was curious about what the school in the inner district was like, so I stole a student ID and slipped in." "You, what's the matter with your outfit?" Shen Shanwu took it for granted. "You're not talking nonsense, of course you stole it." The bald teacher was so angry that he pointed at Shen Shanwu and almost yelled, "Then you also stole this bag? What's in it?" The young man has also been curious about Shen Shanwu's bag for a long time. He is bulging and very curious. "Strong resistance, don't touch my bag. The birthday gift in the bag is something that only mutants can get. Once it is made public, he will inevitably see blood if he wants to leave here." "Hey, you kid!" Zhang Huan glanced at the young man lightly, and said coldly, "Don't touch him." Hearing this, the young man stood upright like a mouse and cat. "Yes." Zhang Huan said to the deputy who was holding Shen Shanwu's wrists, "Let him go." The deputy nodded, "Scolded you for being honest," and then slowly let go of his hand. He took a step back, and secretly wondered why this child is so strong. He was almost freed by him just now. "Zhang team, Zhang team." The bald teacher quickly stepped forward to apologize. "This is our poor supervision, thank you so much for helping us see through this thief. Even if you hand him over to us, he will be strictly criticized and educated." Zhang Huan gave the team a look, and the only female player present immediately took a step to the left, blocking the bald teacher's sight with her back. "Bald instructor! What's wrong with the people at the coastal base? What do you mean?" Zhang Huan squatted down again and looked at Shen Shanwu seriously. "You have no father, no mother, or even a name. Ong! Neither have any relatives in the outer zone. Then would you like to be adopted by me and go to the coastal base with me?" Shen Shanwu was stunned for a moment, his round eyes filled with great doubts. "Hey! I am the grandson of the military commander-in-chief of the Eastern Coastal Base and the captain of the base's first team, Shanghai team." Zhang Huan placed his chips one by one as if he was negotiating with a business opponent. "If you want, you will be my only adopted son. I don't have a wife, and after my death, everything in my name will be given to you for free. If you want to go to school, I will take you to the central primary school in the coastal base." "Wait a minute, Captain." The young man was also extremely shocked. This kid is also a little better looking, the whole person is unknown and full of lies. How can you think of Captain adopt him? The deputy team is not as calm as the young man. He knows that the captain must have his reasons for saying this. He only guessed and asked, "Zhang team, the origin of this child, is it the child of your deceased?" From beginning to end, only Shen Shanwu was in Zhang Huan's eyes, and those peach blossom eyes seemed to contain an indescribable affection. If he hadn't known Zhang Huan's eyes long ago, being young is so easy to cause misunderstandings, and Shen Shanwu also thought that this person had something wrong with him. "Are you willing?" Zhang Huan asked earnestly again, his voice was low. If any young girl who was in love could hear it, she would be willing to give him her life. Shen Shanwu rubbed his wrist that was twisted red, and pouted, "I don't want to." The young man was about to persuade the captain to think twice, but he heard that Shen Shanwu actually refused. When he turned his voice, he exclaimed angrily, "Why don't you want to?" Shen Shanwu certainly would not like it. 7 years ago, Zhang Huan followed his elder brother and eldest brother in a short voice, and 7 years later, he actually asked him to call Zhang Huan's father? Reverse? Zhang Huan didn't seem to expect that the little boy in front of him would refuse so decisively. His eyes darkened, and he asked repressedly, "Why?" "No reason." Shen Shanwu touched his shoulder. "I didn't do anything to hurt the world, let me go, I promise to stay in the outer area in the future, never again. Not here anymore." I didn't expect Zhang Huan to stand up straight and said coldly, "Since I can't tell why, then I won't let you go." "What?" Shen Shanwu was shocked. Did he have to be forcibly adopted? Is Shanghai a team or a minor trafficking organization? "No, why do you have to adopt me?" "No, why? You feel like a very bad person." Zhang Huan pursed his lips, lowered his head and put on the mask again, then he reached out and forcibly rubbed Shen Shanwu's hair. "I will be nice to you." "You say so, Yao Yukui, take him to the place where we are staying." Zhang Huan ordered regardless of Shen Shanwu's objection. "The order is still obeyed immediately. Zhongyan is going to, remember and look after him." The captain's aggravated tone made Yao Yukui's whole body startled, and he and another named female player said in unison, "Yes." After finishing the arrangement, Zhang Huan turned around and said to the deputy team, "Go back to the auditorium and finish the first lesson of the school." "Yes." The bald teacher stood stupidly for a long time, and finally saw the big man from the coastal base look at him. He hesitated for a while, and he didn't know what to say for a while. "I want to adopt this child." Zhang Huan took the initiative to ask, "Do I need to go through any formalities in Zhongmeng?" The bald teacher sighed, "It depends on whether he has a Zhongmeng ID card, but most of the orphans of his age in the suburban city have no identity. But Captain Zhang, why did you suddenly think of adopting this child?" Zhang Huan didn't answer, he nodded and said thank you, and followed the other team members into the auditorium. The other side. After Yao Yukui received the captain's order, he felt uneasy when he looked left and right at Shen Shanwu. He and Zhongyan faced each other through the masks. They simply took out 2 pairs of handcuffs, one handcuffed Shen Shanwu and the other hand, and the 3 of them stood side by side. "Put Shen Shanwu in the middle, and carry Shen Shanwu out of the school like a chicken." Shen Shanwu really had a splitting headache. He got the dormitory number of the president's son, and the gift was in his backpack intact. As a result, he is now being carried by 2 young people and is getting farther and farther away from the mission point. Far. He can easily break free from them, but at the same time the identity of the mutant will be revealed. The problem is that Zhang Huan has seen his face. Shen Shanwu is a mutant, and now there is another child who looks very similar to him is also a mutant. It is hard not to let people connect the two, and it is very likely that the mutants have special abilities to be exposed. Nowadays, mutants are already very much feared by humans. If they are told that the strength of mutants is far more than what they know, the consequences will be disastrous. The passing years are not good. Shen Shanwu can only use these 4 words to describe his current state. Shanghai team lived in a small multi-story villa with a garden in the inner city of Zhongmeng. The residents outside the city were hungry, but the people in the city were leisurely playing with flowers and plants. There were 2 team members left behind in the villa, a man and a woman. When they saw Yao Yukui and Zhongyan escorting a boy into the house, they were all stunned and asked who was this. "The captain intends to adopt him." Yao Yukui took off his mask, and there was indeed a big boy's face underneath, and there were even 2 pimples on his forehead. He took a glass of warm water and took a gulp. "Jing, is the captain crazy?" "The captain must have his own considerations," Zhongyan said coldly while drinking water. She also took off her mask, and then tapped Shen Shanwu with her chin. "What should we do? It's been handcuffed like that." Yao Yukui raised his eyebrows, followed by a wicked smile on his lips. Shen Shanwu knew that something was wrong, and quickly said, "Little brother, do you think I'm here? I don't want to be adopted by your captain. I don't want to be adopted by your captain. You let me go, and you said to the outside world that 3 big masked men suddenly came and took me away." Zhongyan untied the handcuffs and gave Shen Shanwu a cold look, then looked at Yao Yukui. It means you dare to do this, I will do you first. Yao Yukui snorted, I don't want you to be adopted by the captain, but I don't want you to go against the captain's wishes, just stay honest. After all, he handcuffed Shen Shanwu's wrist to the leg of the heavy solid wood seat, and happily went into the kitchen to ask what he had for lunch today. The author has something to say. Thank you for voting or irrigating nutrient solution for me during 2020-50:039:50:02200800519:15:18. Oh my little angel, thanks to the little angel who threw the rocket launcher, meow_ito3, thanks to the little angel who threw the grenade, 3 words, thanks to the little angel who threw the landmine, the stranger is gone, Omega/1. Thanks to the little angel who irrigated the nutrient solution, 44 bottles of meow_ito, 34 bottles of Luan, for 1 bottle. Thank you very much for your support, I will continue to work hard. An hour later, Zhang Huan and the deputy team also returned to the villa. In the hall on the ground floor, 3 people including Yao Yukui were busy in and out between the kitchen and the dining table, while Zhongyan was sitting opposite Shen Shanwu, staring at him without blinking, doing his due diligence. To the point of exaggeration. Zhang Huanyi entered the door, Zhongyan immediately stood up and called the captain, followed by 3 more captains from the kitchen. Zhang Huan took off the cloak and handed it to the people around him, took off the mask again, and nodded to the rest of the team, let's eat. After he finished speaking, he saw Shen Shanwu sitting motionless on the chair. He seemed to think that the other party was holding his breath, so Zhang Huan walked over slowly, bent down, and softened his voice, come on. Let's eat together. Shen Shanwu shook his left hand slightly unhappily, and with the movement of the metal handcuffs made a clattering sound, how can I eat? Zhang Huan lowered his eyes touched Shen Shanwu's red wrist, his expression suddenly froze, he straightened up and said slightly angrily, Yao Yukui, Zhongyan. That's how you accomplished your mission. Yao Yukui, who was serving the dishes, felt that the catastrophe was imminent, he gritted his teeth and muttered that the little had learned to sue, and then handed the dishes to the teammates next to him, and Zhong, who had already sat on the table and went down silently, Yin walked up to Zhang Huan together to repent, Captain, this kid is too slick, don't handcuff him like this to escape. Neither of you adults can watch over a child. But this is this kid's territory after all. And you won't even give me a glass of water. Shen Shanwu added fuel and jealousy, Yao Yukui's eyes widened, and he scolded this little for not saying that he wanted to drink water. Will their team still be stingy with a glass of water? Seeing Zhang Huan's expression getting darker and darker, Zhongyan hurriedly stepped on Yao Yukui's vamp, followed by crushing it hard, Captain, we knew we were wrong. Don't untie it soon. Yao Yukui gritted his teeth in pain, squatted down aggrievedly to release the handcuffs to Shen Shanwu. Zhang Huan stood beside him and said expressionlessly, I will not allow it in the future. Treat him like that, and don't keep calling this kid, he has a name. Captain, he himself said he didn't have a name. But I gave him a name. Zhang Huan said solemnly, he turned to look at Shen Shanwu, as if he wanted to change his expression and tone, but he was used to his face. Getting used to reprimanding his subordinates, he couldn't correct it for a while, in the future, you will be called Zhang Tong. He paused, and added a sentence to ease his attitude, are you okay? This man really wants to be his father, but Shen Shanwu also really doesn't want to have another father. He is 10 years younger than him, and he can't afford to lose this person. Zhang, team, Shen Shanwu was considering his words. What should he say to dispel Zhang Huan's idea of being his father? Extinguish. No matter how turbulent Shen Shanwu's heart is, the other Shanghai team members have witnessed the captain's attitude with their own eyes, and they have considered it in their hearts. The female player in charge of cooking immediately took the lead, she applauded loudly, welcome to Zhang Tong. The male teammate who cooked with him quickly followed, welcome Kid Zhang Tong. Although it is not clear why the captain attaches so much importance to this child who appeared out of thin air, the captain must have his reasons, and they are all done to welcome the subordinates. Seeing the whole process of arresting Shen Shanwu, the deputy team could not laugh or cry. He followed the captain on the way back to his residence and suggested that at least the true background of the boy should be found out, whether both parents died in the family, don't let them put people away. He was forcibly taken away, and as a result, he ran away from home during the rebellious period, and his biological parents were so anxious that they fainted. The captain nodded silently and agreed, but as soon as he thought of the name, he almost wrote, "No matter what the situation of this child, I will take it away," on his face. With the increasingly uniform applause in the villa, even Yao Yuqi reluctantly gave a perfunctory welcome. Shen Shanwu became more and more desperate. How could he meet this kind of good thing to be forcibly adopted while walking on the street? The little beggars on the streets and alleys of the outer district were all crying. The friendliness of the team members to Shen Shanwu calmed Zhang Huan's previous anger very well. He symbolically gave Yao Yuqi and Zhong Yin a punishment of 200 push-ups, turned and took off the gloves, then he held Shen Shanwu's hand hanging on the side. "Follow me." Shen Shanwu also struggled symbolically, but he didn't break free, so he led him. He couldn't naively wrestle with Zhang Huan here. A team member has long since opened up a chair for Shen Shanwu, and a cushion was placed on the chair. It seems that they are afraid that Shen Shanwu's small hands will not be able to reach the table. The girl in charge of cooking apparently heard his accusation that there was no water to drink, so she scooped up a bowl of soup and handed it to Shen Shanwu kindly. "Come on, brother Zhang Tong, try your sister's craftsmanship." To tell the truth, Shen Shanwu has not served dinner with a large group of people like this for a long, long time. There are a total of 9 mutants in China. It was because of a new mutant in the high-altitude region of the West that the gathering was a few years ago. Although ordinary people classify mutants as zombies, mutants themselves still think that they belong to human beings. Humans are always gregarious creatures. Who would like to be alone in the wilderness with carries? What about traveling alone? He held the bowl slightly touched, and looked at it with a probe. There were 2 pieces of tofu and 2 greens in the bland clear soup. Oil flowers were dotted, almost invisible to the naked eye. After all, it is meat, and the number is exactly 9. At first glance, it is bought by the head. And there was no rice in the bowl in front of him, 2 sweet potatoes and a bowl of mushy millet porridge. Shen Shanwu suddenly lost his appetite and lost his appetite. The mutants can eat, but they don't need to eat at all physically. They can live in the sun like zombies. Food has become a hobby for them. We'll go to eat. Over time, Shen Shanwu has also developed a very picky eater. Although he is not a master chef, he can't make delicious delicacies, but for a meat lover, no matter how the fat and juicy hair is roasted, it is better than the clear water cabbage. But Shen Shanwu also knows that for humans, such a non-radiation vegetarian meal is already a high level in the country. All of them were young and middle-aged people, each one could eat, especially Yao Yuqi, who was still in adolescence. Shen Shanwu picked up the soup bowl and drank it slowly, a pair of black eyes like lacquer kept looking left and right. There were 9 people on the table except him, and they all ate very fast. Everyone ate quickly in silence. Zhang Huan's eating posture is still the most elegant at the round table, exactly the same as when he was a child. Influenced by his mother, this young master has always revealed innate dignity in every move, as if eating not sweet potatoes but truffles, not tofu soup but wine. Zhang Huan seemed to sense Shen Shanwu's gaze. He raised his eyes and saw that the rice porridge in front of Shen Shanwu had hardly moved, and the sweet potatoes had not been touched. Only the soup was barely half drunk. He frowned slightly and asked, "What's the matter, why don't you eat?" Shen Shanwu doesn't know what to say. After all, there is probably no such thing as unappetizing in the minds of ordinary people nowadays, and some food is good. "I don't want to eat." Shen Shanwu pushed the rice porridge forward, I see that little brother is not full, give it to him. Yao Yukui was overjoyed, he stretched out his hand to serve it, but Zhongyan slapped the back of his hand with a chopstick halfway, and cried out in pain, "Why, he told me. Will you swallow it? You. Are you still a girl? You can say this." Except for the pair of living treasures bickering, the others all looked at each other, tacitly accepting that Shen Shanwu was doing something, deliberately looking for something to trouble the captain. However, this kid is really strong, because he refused to be adopted by the captain, so he could hold back his mouth in the face of such a sumptuous meal. Zhang Huan thought about it, picked up the largest shrimp from the plate in the center of the dining table and put it on Shen Shanwu's plate. "Hurry up and eat, there's no need for this kind of thing. I can't live with myself." The cooking girl readily followed suit and gave Shen Shanwu her share of shrimp, that is, the little brother can grow taller by eating more. The only shrimp is what the captain and I came out with, as a gift to Zhang Tong to catch the wind and dust, and everyone else has one, and eat them quickly. 2 shrimps want to buy me? Without the overfishing of humans, we mutants would just be a bunch of things if we just fished in the river. However, seeing Yao Yukui sucking the shrimp head creaky, and refusing to let go of the shrimp shell, this is indeed a rare thing for them. Shen Shanwu returned the vice team's shrimp, but the one that belonged to Zhang Huan was peeled and put into his mouth. "Shrimp is nothing." Seeing that Shen Shanwu finally moved his chopsticks, Zhang Huan's eyes gradually softened. He gave Shen Shanwu a chopstick and a loofah, "Eat more dishes." Shen Shanwashi drank rice porridge with no taste. Yu Guang saw that Zhang Huan was going to serve him vegetables, and hurriedly hugged the bowl and avoided it. "I hate loofah the most." Who is not good for the captain to adopt, but he found such a person. The deputy team is another category. How can a child who grew up outside the district be so picky? His identity is in question. Zhang Huan is the most special kind. In a moment of stunnedness, he never realized that he had murmured, "You don't like loofah." The mutants are very good at hearing, and no one else noticed Zhang Huan's whispers, but Shen Shanwu felt that the word also was very subtle, and he quickly snorted the soup and porridge after drinking. He jumped off the stool and said, "I want to go to the toilet." Zhang Huan quietly looked at the loofah in his bowl. There was no light in his eyes were deep and deep. The warm-hearted Xiaoan quickly stood up and played the role of a nurse. "Go to the toilet, right? Follow me." Shen Shanwu. The author has something to say. Shanwu, a twisted melon is not sweet. Zhang Huan, who wants sweet loofah? A piece of black nails in the bottle, knocked, and placed on the ground. The mutant wolf dog silently grew out from the floor tiles of the toilet. He opened his black and red eyes and looked around for a week. Before he could speak, Shen Shanwu was standing on the toilet lid. Covered his mouth. Shen Shanwu pointed to the door, then shook his head. The wolf dog frowned directly into a knot. He distinguished the movement outside the door for a while, and judged the number of people in the hall, then raised his right hand and smiled evilly. With a gesture of wiping his neck, he was very wild, indicating that the group of chickens outside, "Do you need brother wolf dog to kill them all for you?" Shen Shanwu shook his head quickly. He took out a pen and paper from his bag, and wrote, "There are people from the Shanghai team of the coastal base outside. I met their captain when I was checking the information of the president's son at school, and then their captain suddenly decided to adopt me." The wolf dog finally frowned into a bow, and the whole face showed a capital Y. "I don't know why, but do you know who their captain is?" Shen Shanwu started another line and wrote, "Zhang Huan, Zhang Huan." The wolf dog repeated silently. He recalled it for a while, and finally caught this slightly complicated name in the long river of memory. The wolf dog took the pen and wrote, "He was not the one who followed you a few years ago." Shen Shanwu nodded, but saw the wolf dog continue to write, "Is that unfamiliar witty-eyed wolf?" The corner of Shen Shanwu's mouth collapsed quickly. He took back the pen and replied, "It's not so exaggerated." The tip of the pen paused for a while, and then added, Don't say that to him. The wolf dog shrugged and said, whatever you want. Why did he suddenly adopt you? Shen Shanwu shook his head and he didn't know what he meant, but the wolf dog held his chin and diverged his thoughts. After a few seconds, he really clarified the logic. With your current face, why? Look, there is a connection with you as an adult. Zhang the wolf dog struggled for a while, and was too lazy to waste time and directly wrote a pinyin. Zhang Huan insisted on adopting a child who looks very similar to you. This is a retaliation. Let someone who looks just like you call him dad to relieve the hatred in his chest. Shen Shanwu was very dissatisfied. What am I going to do to get revenge on me? Did I treat him badly? He carefully recalled his relationship with Xiao Zhonghuan back then, and was surprised to find that it was all images of Zhonghuan being bullied by him to the point of tears, but at that time Zhonghuan betrayed his relatives and separated, and only Shen Shanwu can rely on one person, so he can only choke with grievances and seek comfort from him, the culprit. It seems that there is indeed a possibility of revenge. Shen Shanwu is inexplicably guilty. What do you say? The wolf dog wrote and asked. Shen Shanwu tried his best to shake off his guilt, and replied, I plan to stay and go to the coastal base with him after all. I ate someone else's shrimp, and the mouth is short. But it's impossible to call dad, that's the bottom line. The wolf dog is really envious. Fuck. I want to go to the coastal base too. I also want to play with human beings openly. I'm really boring. Shen Shanwu smiled. First of all, you have to try to tear up the non-interference treaty between mutants and ordinary humans. Soft girl. The wolf dog was shamefully greedy, and Shen Shanwu raised his head and said loudly, immediately. Then he quickly pulled the pen and paper. I'll find a way to send the birthday present. Do me a favor first. They will definitely check on me. You go to the outer area of Zhongmeng to give me an orphan status. The wolf dog was shocked. What to do? Shen Shanwu, come on. After writing, Shen Shanwu ruthlessly retracted the pen and paper, zipped the backpack, pressed the toilet flush button. The wolf dog angrily raised his right middle finger, while his body was the fingers of the left hand began to disintegrate rapidly, as if the flesh and blood were swept away by the high-speed rotation of something invisible, and finally only a straight middle finger, which symbolized the will of the wolf dog, remained standing. When Shen Shanwu opened the toilet door, his disappeared completely, and there was not even a trace of unfamiliar smell in the toilet. Xiaoyan, Zhongyin, and Yao Yukui were guarding outside the door, and by looking at their postures, they knew that Shen Shanwu would not come out again, and these three would definitely break into the door immediately. Che, why didn't you run away? Yao Yukui's face was stinky. Shen Shanwu glanced at him, as if he suddenly remembered something, and shouted crisply, little brother, have you done your 200 push-ups? Would you like me to count them by your side? Pfft! Someone in the hall couldn't help laughing, and Yao Yukui shouted in anger, why are you laughing? Yao Yukui. Zhang Huan's serious voice made Yao Yukui not dare to be presumptuous immediately. He shrugged his tail and begged for mercy, Captain, we just finished eating. Then take a half-hour break, and Zhongyin take the initiative to take the penalty. Yes. After finishing speaking, Zhang Huan looked at Shen Shanwu again. He beckoned and motioned for the other party to come over. Shen Shanwu passed by without hesitation, and the deputy on the side took out a handful from his pocket, a tape measure. Let Shen Shanwu put down the bag, and measure his height measurements. Don't touch my bag. Shen Shanwu warned again. In fact, the more he emphasized, the more curious about the contents of the bag, but it was because of the majesty of the captain, no one dared to peel it. That's it. Measure the size. The deputy team took the data and went out to buy clothes for Shen Shanwu, and Zhang Huan had a meeting with the leadership of Zhongmeng in the afternoon, so he put on his mask again and left the villa after sitting for a while. Before leaving, he did not forget to tell Xiaoyan to take good care of Zhang Tong. Take care of him. Yao Yukui gritted his teeth and said that he would definitely help to take care of this arrogant boy. but when he turned his head, he was pressed by Shen Shanwu to do push-ups, and in the middle of the process, he was rejected by his unconscionable teammates for his non-standard posture, and put 3 dictionaries on his waist. Zhang Tong. Xiaoan sat beside Shen Shanwu with a smile. We will leave early tomorrow morning to return to the coastal base. There are not many rooms in the villa. I will give it to you in the Wuqi room. Set up a small bed. Will you sleep for one night? Shen Shanwu was observing the various entrances and exits in the villa and the location of monitoring. When he heard this, he nodded indifferently. Okay. Zhang Tong is so nice. Don't talk to me in a kid-friendly tone. But aren't you just a child? Xiaoan smiled deeper, thinking that a little adult like Zhang Tong is quite fun. In the next time, Shen Shanwu first walked up and down the whole villa for a week, then lay down on the swing bed, and spent the whole afternoon peacefully in his sleep. He was relieved. Those who look after him also have peace of mind. In fact, mutants don't need to sleep at all, but because they don't need to eat or sleep, the days are too boring and hard. Shen Shanwu spends more time sleeping on weekdays than when he was a human. Much more. Boring is really a big killer. If it weren't for boredom, Shen Shanwu would never take the risk and agree to be adopted by Zhang Huan. If you have anything at home, pack it with you. Shen Shanwu zipped up his jacket. The hood was still a bit big even after the modification, and only a small chin was exposed after wearing it. The deputy team could not see his eyes, but he could see the pale lips drew a smile that was not a smile. I have a home. The deputy team was silent and did not speak, and then patted Shen Shanwu on the shoulder. Now there is. Zhang Tong's reaction was almost indistinguishable from the information he found from the group of underage hooligans in the outer district. In the afternoon, he handed over the candid photos, and the hooligan leader sneered after seeing it. You know him, isn't he dead yet? The deputy team asked where this person lived. The hooligans kept laughing. You said every word and I said, how could they have a home? Everything, carry it all with you and sleep wherever you can sleep at night. Before leaving, the deputy team noticed that half of the cake bag was exposed in the pocket of a hooligan. This is something that will never appear in the outer area. He pointed at the other party and frowned and asked, then where did the cake come from? The little hooligan suddenly panicked, his eyes dodged and backed away, but the hooligan leader, who had been in a lot of battles, snorted and said, why? How can we survive here if we don't steal or rob? You? Are you going to arrest us? Come on, I don't want to live for a long time. Everything was reasonable and the deputy team couldn't pick it out. He reported the information he found to the captain remotely. After a while, the captain replied that he knew, and then it was gone. Below. After the deputy team left, the wolf dog with a hat covering his face came out from behind the wall and threw the remaining half bag of chicken cakes to the hooligans, and by the way, he also rewarded 2 bottles of the rogue leader. Immediately smiled with the juice left for him to drink, and they didn't plan to eat it either. How much came and how much was stuffed into their stomachs? There was wine tonight and they were drunk tonight. The wolf dog just told them a word before, and it is very likely that someone will take the photo to ask you if you know it, and then say you know it. As a result, these little guys showed their acting skills and played well. So good, really, there are talents everywhere at the bottom and grassroots level. After 8 o'clock, it was already dark, and Zhang Huan was late with an exquisite rechargeable lantern. The temperature outside dropped sharply from 35 degrees Celsius during the day to 10 degrees Celsius. The team members hurriedly greeted him, took over the cape and gloves, and handed hot towels to warm their faces and hands. Xiaoan served the warm dinner, and while lifting the plastic wrap, he said, this is true of the alliance. I know we have to leave early tomorrow morning, so why don't you pull the captain and you have a meeting so late? Zhang Huan did not serve the table immediately. He shook his head in front of the heater and asked, how is Zhang Tong? Very good. Xiaoan said, I read a book in the afternoon, then I slept on the swing, and after eating, I washed my feet with Wu Kei and went to bed. But he didn't eat dinner. How much, maybe a child of this age just eats less. I'll go see him. Zhang Huan walked up the stairs quickly. You all rest early. Okay, Captain, just put the bowl away after you eat. I'll get up and wash it tomorrow. N. Before he finished speaking, Zhang Huan had already stepped up to the second floor in 3 steps. He walked to the Wuqi room, knocked on the door, and then walked in directly. In the house, Yao Wuqi was playing Sudoku quietly by the head of the bed, when Zhang Huan suddenly came in and startled him. Team. Zhang Huan put his index finger in front of his lips and silently made a quiet gesture. Yao Wuqi nodded, and mouthed, I fell asleep. The author has something to say after a long time. Shen Shenwu leaned into Zhang Huan's ear and said with a chuckle, adopted father. The originally fragmented wheezing sound instantly became heavier thanks to the little angel who threw the rocket launcher. Meow_Ito 2, Yiyuan 1, thanks to the little angel who threw the mine. Meow_Ito, interesting space, main attack fan. Xiaoxiang Dream 1, thanks to the little angel who irrigated the nutrient solution. 30 bottles of Danulongsha, 155,120 bottles. Thank you very much for your support. I will continue to work hard. Shen Shenwu was lying on his side on a temporary camp bed beside the window. The duvet rose and fell regularly with his breathing, and there was a little baby fat on his cheeks at his age, which was pressed into the pillow, slept very peacefully and sweetly. After closing his eyes, his slender eyelashes were particularly eye-catching, with distinct roots, trembling endearingly because of the slight breeze. Shen Shenwu's lips were naturally half open because of his deep sleep, and he was quiet, his breathing was barely audible. Even Yao Wuqi had to admit that if this kid could keep this state forever, he wouldn't hate him at all. Zhang Huan stood beside Shen Shenwu's bed and watched for a while, tucked the quilt, and backed out without saying a word. Before leaving, he forcibly turned off the lights, regardless of Yao Wuqi's Sudoku completion. Yao Wuqi was forced to close the book and pen, and drank the water at the head of the bed in the dark. He had never seen his captain be so gentle to anyone. He was lying on the bed tossing and turning thinking about what kind of ecstasy the dead kid next door gave the captain, and why he was so favored by the captain. After thinking for a long time, Yao Wuqi finally fell into a restless sleep amid the troubles of the youth, and at the same time, the person sleeping by the window opened his eyes under the hazy moonlight open eyes. Shen Shenwu sat up slowly, his red eyes with a black background glowing like a cat in the shadows. He waited patiently for a while, and when all the voices in the villa had calmed down, he took the bag at the end of the bed, raised his hand and pinched it lightly to break the lock hanging on the window. He opened the window with a small slit, put the bag out first, and then the person sneaked out and closed the window, without disturbing Yao Wuqi, who was sleeping soundly on the other bed after taking sleeping pills. Too careless, Shen Shenwu silently slid down the pipe outside the villa wall and landed on the grass. 17 years old really is 17 years old. If he is in the same room tonight it was Zhang Huan or the vigilant deputy team, he definitely didn't slip out so easily. Shen Shenwu looked back at the pitch-dark villa and quietly sneaked into the dark night. Compared to the team with a conscious work and rest schedule, the school is still very lively. After the apocalypse, there will be no entrance exams, and there will be no such things as evening self-study. Students from rich backgrounds will go home after class. There are not so rich dormitories. On the first day of the first quarter, it is the time when this group of hairy boys is noisy. It was originally an old man who was on the night shift at the school. After the incident of children sneaking into the suburbs during the day, he became 4 old men, just in time to get a table of mahjong. When Shen Shenwu was approaching, he happened to hear them talking about the day's affairs, and in the sound of playing mahjong, the rumors had already fancied that he was the child of the Shanghai team captain's first love unmarried and pregnant, and the first love wrongly fell in love with a scumbag. I disliked the captain who was a poor boy when I was young. I didn't expect that it would be 30 years in Hedong and 30 years in Hexi. Speak with nose and eyes, as if they experienced it firsthand. Originally, Shen Shenwu wanted to wait and see if there were any students who truant and sneaked back at night, and entered the school among them, but he didn't expect the security to be so poor. He just played the mutants. Speed, easy to enter the school without much effort. The corridors of the dormitory building are full of students who are wearing cotton jackets and big pants, running in a huff. Listening to the conversation, they came back before the closing of the washroom with flashlights and candles in their hands. Or the oil lamp was slapsticking along the way, and Shen Shenwu walked over wearing a mask without attracting anyone's attention. The president's son lived in a 4-person room. When Shen Shenwu entered, there was only one person in the room. He slept on the top bunk and asked if he had taken a shower without raising his head. Shen Shenwu didn't say anything. He looked at the student business cards marked on the bedpost one by one, found the target person, and put the backpack on the innermost side of his bed. The student in the upper bunk never got a response, turned on the flashlight strangely, stuck his head out of the bed, and found no one for a long time. Did I hear it wrong? He said strangely to himself, muttered to himself. When his real roommate came back, he told the other 3 about it. A tall thin man with glasses must have seen a ghost, but when he climbed into bed and touched when he got to the backpack by the pillow, the expression on his face was the real ghost. Intuition made the tall and thin man close his mouth tightly. He avoided his roommate and carefully opened his backpack. Under the dim yellow flashlight, there was a transparent glass cover, representing the highest existing protection technology, and the glass shrouded, is a blooming white flower. The pure black stamens and branches and leaves are strange and charming, and the petals on it are dazzling. Immortal flower only grows in the areas with the strongest radiation. Once the flower blooms, it will never wither, even if it is picked, it will remain in bloom forever. The language of flowers is eternal love. This kind of flower is beautiful, but it is poisonous everywhere. Even if it is picked, it will continue to emit strong radiation. It is a problem for ordinary people to even get close to the place where the eternal flower grows. In this world, there are mutants that can get it. His face was blurred. For a long time, he couldn't help but open the zipper of the backpack again, penetrated the light through a small gap, held his breath, and cast his eyes. In the middle of the night, Yao Yukui was awakened by the urge to urinate. He rubbed his head and felt very drowsy, but the urge to urinate was so strong that he was fined 200 push-ups for not giving Zhang Tong water. I was so angry that I drank 7 cups in front of Zhang Tong all afternoon, and now retribution is coming. Yao Yukui sat up sleepily, subconsciously looked in Zhang Tong's direction first. A bag was arched on the cot next to the bed, and the little guy was nestling there. Slightly. Yao Yukui grimaced childishly, turned on the night light swayingly, and went out to solve his physical problems. After returning, Zhang Tong on the bed was still in his old posture. He was buried under the quilt, and he was not afraid of suffocating himself to death. Yao Yukui was not so kind to tuck him in the quilt. But suddenly a chill went down his spine, and he realized a question that made him instantly clear: where is the backpack that Zhang Tong never leaves? He clearly remembered that Zhang Tong put the bag at the end of the bed before going to bed. Because he was curious about the contents of the bag, Yao Yukui couldn't help but pay attention to the movement of the bag. Yao Yukui turned on the light switch abruptly. Zhang Tong's bed was bulging, but when the darkness faded, this drum appeared extremely false. Don't. Yao Yukui prayed and stepped forward to lift Zhang Tong's quilt. No one was there. He whimpered in pain and looked up to see the lock on the window missing. Am I a dead pig? The lock is off, and I sleep a meter away without knowing anything? Yao Yukui frantically questioned himself, and hurriedly ran out of the house and knocked on the door next door. The only 2 girls in the team were sleeping next door. Zhongyan responded very quickly and opened the door, and Zhang Xiaoyan followed behind and rubbed her eyes. Zhang Tong is gone. In 1 sentence and 5 words, Zhang Xiaoyan was so frightened that Zhang Xiaoyan almost poked his finger into his eye socket. Zhongyan shoved Yao Yukui away and rushed into the next room. There was no temperature under the opened quilt. Obviously, the person had already left. Long time. Wuqi and I went out to find someone, Miss Wen, you go and tell the captain. Zhongyan calmly gave the order. Yao Wuqi simply put on a protective jacket over his pajamas. This kid was so angry that he wanted to poke people's skin and cramps, but he was a little scared at the same time. What if I can't find it? If you can't find you, quit the team and apologize. Zhongyan put on boots barefoot, put on a mask, and went out with Yao Wuqi in 10 degrees temperature. Door. The door opened quickly. Zhang Huan stood in front of the door wearing a black cloak. Behind him was the boundless darkness. It revolves around a hazy depression, like waking up from a haunting nightmare. What's the matter? Zhang Huan asked calmly. Once he opened his mouth, the feeling of fragility disappeared like a tide, and he became the familiar captain of Shanghai again. Captain! Xiaoan said cautiously, Zhang Tong, is gone. Zhang Huan's face froze, it's gone? Why don't you see it? Yao Wuqi said that he woke up in the middle of the night and his bags were gone, and the lock on the window was missing. He guessed that he must have escaped from the window. A team mercenary who received formal training let a 9-year-old child escape from the 3rd floor alone under his nose. This is ridiculous. Zhang Huan paused for a moment, and then simply he was furious. Where's Yao Wuqi? He didn't hear such a big movement of picking the lock. He didn't control his volume, and the deputy team and a team member in the next room quickly stuck their heads out. Xiaoan said quickly, he and Xiaoan went out to find someone. Did he do it on purpose? Zhang Huan said gloomily, deliberately let Zhang Tong go. Xiaoan suddenly became more anxious. Captain, no captain, Wuqi will not do this. The more she explained, the paler she felt, and anyone could see that Yao Wuqi was displeased. Zhang Tong, Yao Wuqi will definitely applaud when Zhang Tong is leaving. But the captain has never said such doubts about the players before. Is Zhang Tong so important to the captain? Who is this kid? The awakened deputy team asked the whole story, and then asked the other teammates to wake up everyone else. He scratched his sleepy hair. Zhang, don't worry, even if you the Central League digs 3 feet into the ground, and we can also catch this stinky boy. Zhang Huan maintained the posture of holding the lamp and lowered his head slightly. The raging darkness behind him seemed to engulf him. At this moment, his figure faintly revealed frailty and fragility, which made people feel unbearable. Xiaoan couldn't see his expression clearly, so he could only tentatively call Captain Sheng. Forget it. Zhang Huan suddenly said, and he wearily stopped the team members who were going downstairs. Forget it. If you really don't want to go with me, let him leave. But Captain. Zhang Huan waved his hand and stopped Xiaoan from continuing. Go and call Yao Wuqi and Zhongyan back, I'll go back to sleep. Speaking, he looked back at the bottomless room, without sleepiness, stood for a while. Zhang Huan turned off the light in his hand in the sight of the team members, and put it on the table, then slowly walked downstairs with the wooden handrail, turned on the ceiling light in the hall, and slowly sat down on the sofa. The author has something to say. Thank you for voting or irrigating nutrient solution for me during 202008071539:43 2020080819:59:46. Oh my little angel, thanks to the little angel who threw the mines, 4 in the first generation, 2 in Lindai, thanks to the little angel who irrigated the nutrient solution, 12 bottles of drag horses, 10 bottles of favorite wavy lines. Thank you very much for your support, I will continue to work hard. Seeing the lights in the villa from a distance, Shen Shanwu vaguely felt that the situation was going to happen. Grab his arm. Now he can confirm that disaster is imminent. Shen Shanwu pretended to cry, pain, pain, swollen, swollen, swollen. Why did you go away when you knew the pain? How dare you jump out of the window to escape? I don't have. Wu Quebec. Zhongyan suddenly put one hand against her ear and said, the vice team asked us not to look for it, hurry back. Hey! Yao Yukui was surprised, but isn't it found? Then take it back. Zhonyan was silent for a while. Take it, if the captain says no, we will press him out the door and beat him before letting him go. Shen Shanwu. Brother Shanwu is very vengeful, you two should not think about a better life in the future. Yao Yukui interprets the command of the deputy team as Zhang Tong's falling out of favor, so the attack is extraordinarily light and heavy, and Shen Shanwu feels very low pain, but this does not prevent him from being severely caught. There are 5 red fingerprints on his arm, and the visual effect is very impactful. Captain! I brought back the captain! Yao Yukui excitedly carried Shen Shanwu into the door, and Xiaoan was the first to greet her. She quickly ran to the entrance and asked eagerly, "Aren't you hurt? Aren't you frozen? Are you hungry?" No, I'm fine. I'm hungry, I asked Zhang Tong. Shen Shanwu didn't answer. He missed Xiaoan and looked at Zhang Huan sitting in the hall. The other party's eyes fell on him right after he entered the door. There was no expression on his face. I can't even see what I'm thinking. Say no, we can really kidnap you. If you have to jump out of the window to escape at night, we are all worried to death. If you make the captain sad like this in the future, your little sister will be the first to forgive you. Shen Shanwu took off his mask and coat. The former was destroyed and the latter was put into the disinfection cabinet. He walked to Zhang Huan with small steps, and before standing still, he deliberately hissed softly, and rubbed it subconsciously. Wrist, and quickly put his arms behind him. What's the matter? Zhang Huan asked blankly. Shen Shanwu shook his head, it's nothing. A slender and powerful hand stretched out in front of him, palm up, silently waiting for Shen Shanwu to put his hand up. Shen Shanwu tangled, hesitating for a few seconds, and finally lifted it up, raising his right hand. Zhang Huan lifted his sleeve and saw 5 terribly swollen finger marks. Pfft! Yao Yukui, who was drinking water on the side, choked to the core in an instant. Zhonyan hurriedly motioned him with his eyes to let us run away, so that even if there was a punishment, he would be punished tomorrow. The omnipotent Miss Wen pulled out the medicated oil and a hot towel at the right time. She wanted to apply medicine to Shen Shanwu, but saw Zhang Huan personally pick up the medicine, pour it into the palm of her hand, and gently he gripped Shen Shanwu's thin wrist that seemed to break if he pinched it. Zhang Huan didn't speak, and Shen Shanwu didn't know what to say. The two sat and stood, one looked down at each other's hands, and the other looked at each other's nose and bridge from top to bottom. Eyelash. At this time, the only third person, Zhang Xiaoan, looked very embarrassed. She regretted staying behind to watch this father and son mime instead of leaving with Yukui's Hong Guyan. Fortunately, after a while, the deputy team walked down because they were uneasy, and they were able to form an alliance of brothers and sisters in trouble and enjoy the beautiful scenery together. After not seeing him for many years, the changes on Zhang Huan's face were very obvious. The childishness of the youth in his facial features completely faded away, and he was replaced by a manly and firm outline. Shen Shanwu observed quietly until Zhang Huan finished rubbing the medicated oil, wiped his hands clean, raised his eyes to meet his eyes. He saw the kissing lips opened slightly, and heard there was a sigh in my ear, and then Zhang Huan's very depressed voice, "Isn't it so reluctant? If you are serious," Zhang Huan closed his eyes, "I really don't want to stay." Shen Shanwu put down his sleeves and covered his wrists. The smell of medicated oil was very pungent to the mutant's sense of smell, but Shen Shanwu felt that it smelled pretty good. "No," he said, "I just go back and say goodbye to my friends, get some things, and give away some things." The latter sentence is purely to conceal that he is regarded as the heirloom black backpack is gone. Hearing this, Zhang Huan's eyes became dark and heavy. He didn't say anything. Instead, the deputy team asked suspiciously, "Why don't you tell us about this kind of thing during the day? It has to be midnight. Sneak out. Because you will definitely say that the stray children in the outer district have something to take, and if they are lacking, they can buy a better one in the future." Shen Shanwu half truthfully complaining, this is a real event he encountered in the last days, and it was directly applied to himself. The deputy team was dumbfounded, and then heard Xiaoan ask, Zhang Tong, what exactly is in your black backpack? My sister is so curious. It's all things that you would call garbage, you will laugh at me when you see it. Shen Shanwu muttered and looked away. What's the difference between saying and not saying? Xiaoan and the deputy team looked at each other and looked at their captain one after another, while Zhang Huan calmly changed the subject, apparently not wanting to delve into it at all. He asked lightly, then everything you want to bring, did you get it? Got it. Then go to bed early, and leave tomorrow an hour later. Zhang Huan stood up and walked to the stairs first. Shen Shanwu hurriedly declared behind him, Team Zhang, I am willing to be with you. Go, but I must stress that I will only call you captain, nothing else. Whatever you want. Zhang Huan didn't stop, as if he didn't care about it at all. Shen Shanwu was relieved, turned his head and started to act as another demon. He dragged Xiaoan's clothes and said submissively, well, can I not sleep with the previous brother, he is good fierce. In Shen Shanwu's vision, at this time they will explain that Yao Yukui is a knife-mouthed tofu-hearted, in fact, a good person, and then he nodded firmly and sensible, and said, okay, then I will be more careful and stop making my brother angry. For a while, the villa must be full of tea fragrance. Xiaoan, just as Shen Shanwu expected, touched his hair and smiled, it's all right, Wuquaren is fine, don't be afraid. But I didn't expect Zhang Huan to stand on the stairs and turn around and say condescendingly, then come and sleep with me. Shen Shanwu. No need, you are even scarier. Not waiting for Shen Shanwu to react, Zhang Huan had already stretched out his hand to him sideways, and his voice had the cold, hard power that is unique to the superior, and he couldn't refuse, come here. Shen Shanwu shot himself in the foot with a stone, but had no choice but to bite the bullet and go over. Zhang Huan seemed to think that he was dawdling, and when he reached an arm's distance, he actually bent with a hook at the waist. He directly hugged Shen Shanwu's back, dragged his thigh with one hand and picked him up. In order to stabilize his balance, Shen Shanwu subconsciously wrapped his arms around Zhang Huan's neck. He has never been hugged like this since he was a child. Zhang Huan's arm strength is good. Shen Shanwu thought about it for a while, but he was directly carried back to the room by Zhang Huan without saying a word. Xiaoan didn't have time to ask Yao Yukui's bed, how did you sleep? The door was closed by Zhang Huan without looking back. There is really only one bed in the room, but the size is much larger than other rooms, more than enough to sleep two adults. Zhang Huan hung the cloak in the closet. To Shen Shen, who sat beside the bed in a daze, Shanwu said, do you need me to help you take off your clothes? Shen Shanwu neatly took off his protective clothing and got into the quilt. He and Zhang Huan have slept in the same bed many times before, but today the two have exchanged body shapes, that's it. Zhang Huan's sleeping posture is very poor. Countless mornings Shen Shanwu wakes up and either sees the short-handed and short-foot Xiao Zhang Huan clawing at him like a sloth, or he finds him curled up and trying to kill himself whirlpool. But today, it seems a little different. Turn off the lights. Shen Shanwu quietly looked at the person beside the pillow in the dark. The other party was lying on his back in a regular sleeping position, his hands clasped in front of his belly, and he was so neat like a missionary, as if the holy light will light up on the top of his head in the next second. He closed his eyes and waited for a long time, until Zhang Huan's breathing completely stabilized, and he did not see any change in the other's sleeping position. How can a person change so much before and after? Shen Shanwu was very puzzled, but he had to say that the bed the captain slept on was much more comfortable than the temporary camp bed. Shen Shanwu couldn't figure it out, so he didn't want to, and he found a comfortable position to fall asleep peacefully. Shen Shanwu was awakened reluctantly by Yao Yukui at 6 o'clock in the morning the next day. Wu woke up but didn't want to get up with him. After all, staying in bed was a must-have quality for every macho man. Yao Yukui pouted, holding a medicated oil, with a fragrant face, sitting on the head of the bed asking Shen Shanwu to stretch his paws. Xiaoan explained behind him, the captain asked Wu Kei to give you medicine, and said that if he hurt you, he would be fined 50 frog jumps. Shen Shanwu blinked his eyes. Yao Yukui's finger was still 1 centimeter away from his wrist, showing a sad face of Schrödinger. Fuck. Call me before I meet you. 50. The ruthless counting machine Miss Wen is online. Sister Wen. This kid plays me. Come on, you won't be able to make time for breakfast if you drag on. No food is obviously a very deterrent threat. Yao Yukui, reluctantly, can only hold Shen Shanwu's wrist again, as carefully as he cares for the most expensive porcelain kneaded down. 100. Brother, I'm wrong, can't you, stop screaming. Shen Shanwu raised the corner of his lips, showing mercy and no longer humming. After applying the medicine for the bruise, Yao Yukui went outside the villa with a sad face, and started to jump around the small garden, while Shen Shanwu was pulled by Xiaoan and pressed in front of a pile of bottles. This pure white bottle is an anti-radiation drug, 2 capsules a day, once before going to bed and once in the morning. This red label is a cell-strengthening medicine, 1 capsule a day, take it after breakfast. This large green bottle contains anti-radiation cream, at least 3 times in the morning, noon, and evening, and replenish it at any time. This black glass bottle is anti-radiation injection, once a week, with the sleeves up. My sister is a professional, and it won't hurt at all. Shen Shanwu's big man is not afraid of pain, but it is a waste to eat these expensive medicines for him, and the mutant's body will not absorb the effect of the medicine at all. Really, if it is absorbed, it is more troublesome, and there may be some bad side effects. The author has something to say. The green tea is a real hammer. Shanwu, fuck. Belly, a well-behaved and obedient image. Xiaoan handed over the toothbrush squeezed with toothpaste with satisfaction, showing a big sister's caring in all directions, and when she packed up and walked to the hall, everyone else had already eaten breakfast and started to pack. Shen Shanwu had no luggage to carry, so he could sit at the table and stare at a bowl of cornmeal porridge, raising his head to meet Yao Yukui, who had returned from exercising sweating profusely. The other party's appetite was very good, and he drank the porridge in 3 seconds. Shen Shanwu hurriedly pushed his bowl over and said in a low voice, "Hey, drink it up." Yao Yukui widened his eyes and asked in a low voice like a thief, "Is there no poison in it?" What a lot of nonsense! Yao Yukui was about to go to the end, when a hand suddenly inserted horizontally in the middle of the road, and blocked it firmly in front of him. Yao Yukui immediately changed his gesture to stroke his hair, holding an empty bowl into the kitchen. Shen Shanwu raised his head regretfully and saw the very serious face of the deputy team. I heard that this man was only 31 or 2 years old, but his unshaven beard was like his 40s. I feel that dreaming of going back to high school is like seeing the head teacher. Why do you always skip meals? How much have you eaten since yesterday? I can't find anything to eat in the outer area. Over time, my stomach will be hungry. Now you let me eat, but I can't eat it. Shen Shanwu quickly made up a reason, and after speaking, he suddenly, I don't think I made myself too bad. As expected, the deputy gave him a fixed look, but after a while he slapped the table again. Then you have to eat. Hurry, drink, I'm here to watch you eat. Finish. Shen Shanwu pouted, and had no choice but to raise the bowl under the watchful eye of the head teacher, and finish the polenta without mustard. After finally dealing with this bowl of porridge, Xiaoan walked over with a tailored military uniform, explained where the pockets were located, and the emergency accessories inside, and finally a metal chain buckle was also locked around his waist, and a half-meter-long black umbrella was hung on it. It is used for heat insulation and radiation protection. Inside the umbrella handle is a knife. Press the switch here to pull out the blade, but don't play around. Shen Shanwu is not a real child, he really thinks it is very fun, the umbrella can easily fall off when you press the ring button, and when you open the umbrella surface, it is an ordinary sunshade, very light, but underneath is a sharp saber with broken hair, and the blood groove on the blade is waiting for the nourishment of the sweet blood. Do you really want to give Zhang Tong a knife? Xiaoan worried, will he cut himself? The deputy team couldn't bear Xiaoan's doting on children. When you meet a zombie, you ask him to scratch with his nails. Said 2. At 7 o'clock, all the team members gathered in front of the main entrance of the villa on time, and 2 refitted armored off-road vehicles with magnificent appearance parked outside the garden in style, as high as 2 Shenshan Yu. The appearance is sturdy and wild, like 2 pitch-black giant monsters, which makes Shenshan Yu, a mutant with only 2 legs, coveted. He stood in front of the car door and carefully observed the structure of the car, but a team member at the back thought it was because his legs were short and could not get to the door, so the little brother was very enthusiastic to hold Shen Shanwu with both hands under the armpit. The person was lifted up. Shen Shanwu. Shen Shanwu, thank you. Central Alliance is about 1,300 kilometers away from Shanghai base. In the peace era, a flight only takes 4 hours. Even if you drive on the highway, you can arrive in only 15 hours. But now the magnetic field is turbulent, don't think about the plane, and the highway is almost destroyed. It is full of old moss-covered vehicles, and maybe there are a few zombies stuffed inside. There is a heavy radiation area covering an area of 100,000 square kilometers within a straight line distance between the 2 places. They must detour northward. At night, they must stop for rectification. The time stretched to a full week. Fortunately, the off-road vehicle is very comfortable. The Shanghai team is worthy of being the top team in the base. The car is equipped with leather executive chairs. Wu wanted to sleep as soon as he sat down. Woke up in a daze, just in time for lunch. The 2 off-road vehicles were parked one after the other in an area with a wide field of vision. If zombies appeared, it would be a very conspicuous living target. In the case of radiation all around, there is no such thing as ventilation. Even if Shen Shanwu really wants to go out and hang out, he must wear a breathing mask, helmet and protection when he gets out of the car jacket. He sat silently in his place and sighed. It wasn't until then that he realized that Zhang Huan's position had always been opposite him. There was a table between the 2 of them. Sitting beside him was Sister Wen, and Zhang Huan was beside him. No one dared to sit. Ms. Wen went to the back row of the carriage to prepare lunch, while Zhang Huan held his chin with one hand and quietly looked out the window in a daze. From Shen Shanwu woke up to the lunch tray served, he kept this posture all the time, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Shen Shanwu was ready to see a plate of green dishes again, but this time Xiaoan brought up a stack of blocky white cakes and a milky drink. The cup is similar to milk, and the bowl is like coconut milk cubes. He took the chopsticks strangely, the white cake smelled without the unique aroma of desserts, picked up a piece, looked up and saw Zhang Huan lowered his eyes and put the contents of the bowl into his mouth, chewing slowly. From the judging by the almost no expression on his face, he couldn't tell whether it was delicious or not, so Shen Shanwu had to try and take a bite. Ouch! He covered his mouth abruptly and almost threw up on the table. Xiaoan was distributing food to the team members in the driver's seat in front of him. He heard the sound and walked back quickly and asked, "What's wrong?" Shen Shanwu hurriedly picked up the drink and tried to flush the salty, bitter and very dry powder in his mouth, but as soon as the milk entered, he directly trembled in pain on the seat. If it weren't for reason telling him that he must not waste food in front of humans, he must be vomiting wildly in front of the trash can now. What is this? Shen Shanwu's tears were forced out. Xiaoan snorted, "Compressed grain." Compressed grains. Shen Shanwu was about to say, "You don't like me, it's not like I haven't eaten compressed biscuits before the end of the world," and before he blurted out, he thought of the age of Zhang Tong. It's really impossible to eat compressed biscuits, and this compressed grain block is obviously not the kind of compressed biscuits before, so the voice had to change abruptly. Is this taste? Ms. Wen picked up a piece and ate it, nodded, "No problem, it's not very tasty, but it's durable and satiating, and it's the most standard military ration for all major teams at present. This is a functional drink with more than a dozen vitamins, amino acids, proteins, minerals, etc. that the human body needs, and it has no disadvantages except that it is not very tasty and expensive. To be honest, if Shen Shenwu is an ordinary person, if he has no food, he can eat whatever he wants, even worms, not to mention the compressed food in front of him blocks and energy drinks, but he is clearly a mutant who does not need to eat, but he has to suffer this crime. Why? No, absolutely not. If you enter the coastal base to play, the price you have to pay is to eat this thing for 7 days in a row, and then it is very likely that you will come here at every turn. Jump out of the car and run away. Small tricks such as the key to hiding things, Shen Shenwu taught Zhang Huan hand in hand in those days, and now Zhang Huan is sitting directly opposite. Shen Shenwu can't guarantee that he can hide from him. I'm full. He simply put down his chopsticks, jumped off his seat and slid into the back row to avoid nutritious meals. Anyway, with his teenage appearance, how to behave and show his temper is reasonable. If other people think he did it and plan to starve him for a long memory, then Shen Shenwu will just escape the meal. If he is kind enough to persuade him to eat a little, Shen Shenwu will let them put it aside, hide it secretly later, and pretend to be too hungry to eat it in the afternoon. Zhang Huan used up his lunch, put down his chopsticks, and saw Xiaoyan looking at him reluctantly, while his left hand pointed at Shen Shenwu's compressed grain, which he took a small bite. And functional water that does not move. Go to the second car and get him a can. Zhang Huan said calmly, pour a glass of warm water, and then take a vitamin tablet from my box. Hearing the words, the man in the passenger seat almost didn't hold the plate firmly, but he was someone who had experienced strong winds and waves, so he didn't say a word. But Xiaoyan took the can from the car behind and came back, and Yao Yuqi, who came after him, was gone. Although he was wearing a mask, he had a startling personality and voice. It's so recognizable. I rely on the captain. I heard you want to open a can for Zhang Tong. Zhang Huan had a book on his lap. He didn't raise his head when he heard Yao Yuqi coming in, obviously he didn't want to pay attention to him. Yao Yuqi didn't dare to make trouble with Zhang Huan, so he turned around angrily and glanced, just in time to see Xiaoyan open the can, pour out the big pink ham inside, and slice it neatly. Lemon balloon, probably describing Yao Yuqi at this time, really angry and sour. You'd better go back to car 2. Xiaoyan sincerely advised. Yao Yuqi couldn't walk after smelling the scent of the canned food, stared at him and said, "Why, come to car 1, it's not allowed to drop by the door. Put it on the dinner plate with the can, in front of Shen Shenwu's seat. Zhang Tong, it's time to eat." Fuck. Captain, did you give him your vitamins? Yao Yuqi was really sour. He was the youngest member of the team, so everyone remembers any good things. He always felt that he was already favored enough, but until he saw Zhang Tong's treatment today, he didn't know what it meant to be insignificant and what it meant to be incomparable. Zhang Huan almost spoiled Zhang Tong. Went to heaven. Open a can for him if he refuses to eat. There are only a few cans in the whole team, and they only open one on a special day, and then several people eat it. Zhang Tong actually. Eat the whole one by yourself. Zhang Huan did it all. Shen Shenwu was too embarrassed to show no more face. He got up from the back row and sat back in his seat. Under Yao Yuqi's gnashing eyes, sucking blood and killing people, I slowly took a bite of the ham, and the meat taste was only a little bit, most of it was a floury taste, and it was a little sticky to my teeth. I don't know what was added in it. Shenwu has grown from snacks to big brown sausages. But Shen Shenwu didn't dare to pick it at this time. He swallowed all the ham and drank the vitamin water in one go. To be honest, the taste of orange water was okay. He licked his lips, packed up the plate and handed it over to Miss Wen. The author has something to say. Wu Kei, his treatment is too good. Shan Wu, what kind of bad treatment?